Nuclear is a long-term energy choice with a long horizon price tag attached. Is it worth it? Joining us now to consider that, Jatin Nathwani. He is founding executive director of the Waterloo Institute for Sustainable Energy and the Ontario Research Chair in Public Policy for Sustainable Energy at the University of Waterloo. Mark Matson, founder and president, Lake Ontario Waterkeeper. Angela Bischoff, outreach director, Ontario Clean Air Alliance. And Stephen Applin, VP of Energy and Environment at the HDP Group. That's an Ottawa-based management consultancy. And it's great to have everybody here at TVO for our program tonight. I want to start with something just a little bit unusual insofar as we often hear from our viewers who say, okay, you had this guest on, I want to know who pays them. So let's start with that. I'd like to know, let's get our interests all declared off the top. We'll just go right around the table here. Jatin Nathwani, who funds you?
Nobody. I am a professor at the University of Waterloo, so the university pays my salary, and I head the Waterloo Institute for Sustainable Energy, which is sanctioned under the university's Senate, and the budget for my institute, which is a small budget, comes from the university's budget.
And does the nuclear industry fund any of your work?
None.
Renewables?
None.
Natural gas?
None.
Okay.
We do collaborative multidisciplinary research projects that's leveraged through our NSERC and other government agencies, but those are project by project
okay, understood.
Disciplinary projects.
Angela Bischoff, how about you?
The Ontario Clean Air Alliance is a civil society organization funded exclusively by individuals, charitable foundations, and some consulting work we do for environmental groups.
How about Province of Ontario? They give you any money?
No. We have gotten some corporate donations in the past, but our last fiscal year, 0 corporate donations.
Okay, understood. Mark, how about you?
I was an environmental lawyer in 2001. I started the charity Lake Ontario Waterkeeper. We've been raising money across the country, mainly just from donors, but we also have a big gala every year where we have industry tables as well as small donors, et cetera. So
which industries would be at that?
OPG's there.
So OPG has bought
Cement Association. There are some big industries that are there as well, and they support me. Even though we have many lawsuits against OPG, they still come to my event.
Why do they do that?
I think that because they know that we do really great work. Every industry needs strong and independent criticism, and we provide that.
Understood. Steve, how about you?
I've made most of my money in the last 10 years from the fossil fuel industry, natural gas, R&D. But I have done work for the nuclear industry, ACL, the Nuclear Association, the Power Workers Union.
Understood. Okay, we get that on the table, and now everybody knows everybody's interests. Steve, I want to start with you. $12.8 billion for this refurb at Darlington. Why does it cost so much?
Well, as you saw in the setup piece, it's a very complicated job. It's a huge capital project. It's a major plant. It's an extremely robust plant, highly engineered. It takes a very highly skilled workforce to complete this work. And the workforce is comprised, as you saw, of highly skilled trades. This is a big capital project. Big capital projects cost lots of money.
So that's the cost of doing a nuclear refurbishment. Jatin, if you were going to compare that to, say, building a gas plant, how much would that cost?
Gas plant in capital cost is certainly cheaper. And in that sense, and you can do it faster too in terms of a project timeline. The issue with gas is that you're subject to fueling costs, so the fuel and the volatility of gas prices as part of the equation of the decision you would make around whether to build gas for the long term or something that's capital intensive.
So if you're going nuclear, you've got more price stability then than you would natural gas, which fluctuates depending on the market price.
Nuclear provides a very solid foundation over the long term in terms of stability of both prices and in the emerging world now with respect to carbon, a low carbon footprint over many years.
I think we built our first nuclear power plants in this province 50 years ago. I think it was the Robarts government that decided to do Pickering.
Yes.
So we have 5 decades of experience on this. Has the province of Ontario ever done, either in its old incarnation through Ontario Hydro or the new incarnation with Ontario Power Generation, has it ever done a nuclear build on time and on budget?
In the sense that there's always a delay in some of these construction projects is well established. I mean, the idea that these are complex engineering projects, and so there have been delays, and one can go. In fact, Darlington, if you think about it, its early history when it was under construction was delayed, went above cost in many ways, but has proved over time to be a real success in terms of the cost of its output and what it has provided to the province of Ontario over the last 2.5
Well, let me
decades.
follow up with Steve on that. I think the original price tag on Darlington was something like, what was it, $1.5 billion, $2 billion, something like that? It ended up at 13?
It ended up at 14. The original was 7, so it went double its cost. But as Jatin was saying, it's absolutely worth it. I mean, it ended up coming in double the cost, but it's still one of our lowest cost power producers. 20% of the power of the province. That's an enormously important plant.
Angela, next question to you then. OPG, Ontario Power Generation, insists $12.8 billion is the budget, and they will bring this project in on time and on budget. Should we believe that?
Well, I don't know why we would. Every nuclear project in Ontario's history has come, on average, over budget by 2.5 times. Why would this time be any different? You know, OPG originally has been saying all along the cost for the rebuild will be 7 to 8 cents. Just last month, they came before the Ontario Energy Board and asked for a 180% increase in the price in the price they receive for nuclear power, from 5.9 cents to 16.8 cents. So they've come clean and said, actually, it's going to cost 16.8 cents, and that's even before cost overruns. So no, the Darlington rebuild is definitely not in the economic interest of Ontario tax and ratepayers.
Don't want to get too far down the road on that because we're going to come back to that, but that's what they've asked for. The Ontario Energy Board has not granted that request yet, have they?
But they haven't, but that's what they're saying it's going to cost to extend Pickering and rebuild Darlington.
Well, that's their ask.
Yeah.
You always ask for more than you're going to get, don't you?
Well, actually, no. They always under budget. They underprice what it's actually going to cost.
Okay, Mark, over to you. Should we believe them when they say they're going to be in on time and on budget?
No, absolutely not. I mean, when I started as a lawyer here in Ontario, I was at the demand supply plan hearing, which was a big environmental assessment hearing in 1991-92, just up the street here. It was a 2.5-year process, and Justice Connor, some fairly highly reputable jurists were on the panel. And, you know, after 2 years, and there was cross-examination at the time, it was evidence, the entire nuclear plan fell apart. They were going to have, by 2012 was the plan in 1992, that they would have these 2 new reactors. And they had predicted that natural gas would be about 3 times the rate it is now, which is one of the reasons they were going to build nuclear plants. Of course, natural gas is now at 50-year lows. We hadn't built any plants in 20 years, and we haven't run out of energy. In fact, energy is cheaper than it's ever been. And post the DSP, we had what were called demand supply plan hearing. Mm-hmm. The Ontario Energy Board did yearly reviews. They were called hydro rate reviews. And I was a counsel at HR, hydro rate review 19, right to hydro rate review 25. And they were canceled by the Harris government in 1996. But we used to go into those hearings. There were 3-week hearings every year. And the numbers would come in, and they were not ever supported by evidence or scrutiny through the process. So once the hearings disappeared, we lost that. And most of these numbers I see now are just pure politics. They're just thrown out there without the public having the opportunity to test them, to cross-examine them, or to determine the reliability.
Tell us why you believe, because I presume you do believe, that this project can be brought in on time and on budget.
Well, just because they've done so much setup and so much practice at it. The earlier refurbs, like the only one that we can say that we can tag with a bad overrun was the Pickering Unit 4. Pickering Unit 1 came in reasonably on time and on budget, and the Bruce ones, well, there was some force majeure at work, and they were delayed, but not, you know, to a
force majeure meaning?
Meaning something beyond our control. This was invoked. It was accepted by the authorities, and if you go back to what Mark was saying, yes, they might be wrong. Everybody's wrong in their projections, but what was the upshot of them being wrong in the early 1990s was nuclear power is still our second cheapest power source. It's the biggest source of power in the province, and it's still the second cheapest. So they got a few estimates wrong. Everybody does. It's not egregiously expensive. The alternatives are egregiously expensive.
No, but I appreciate that we are highly dependent on nuclear power, and that as a cost per kilowatt hour of electricity, it's still quite a competitively priced thing. Yeah. Having said that, if you tell me you're going to build something for $7 billion and it ends up costing $14 billion, tell me why I would want to go back to you and have you do this new project for me?
Because it produces 20% of the province's power. It was delayed by a couple of years, but in the end, you get 3,200 megawatts of flat-out baseload power that runs 100 days at a time and produces absolutely no carbon and has the smallest environmental footprint of any form of power generation that we know of.
How confident are you that this project could be brought in on time and on budget?
Yeah, I think this doubling or the factor 2.5 of the cost we shouldn't think of it as some sort of a preordained, ironclad historical determinism. That's wrong. Who knew that you would be operating in a 19% interest environment back in the 1980s? Who knew that governments would shift decisions for Darlington ahead and behind and ahead and behind? So over time, if you look back, you could say there are all sorts of culprits in play here, including the organization and some of the engineering decisions that were made by Ontario Hydro that resulted in some of the upward pressures on costs. But the 2.5 is essentially a fiction. It's not something that you can really count on. And then the next point one needs to understand is, how can you take the view that we have not learned from the past? How can you take the view that we are no longer capable of innovation to learn from the lessons and in fact try and bring this project in at a level of cost 8 cents a kilowatt hour is the reference cost here. Now, all such projects, and I think this one will even go a bit higher, but if it comes in anywhere between 8 to 10 cents a kilowatt hour, that would be an absolute bargain for the province of Ontario for the next 40 years, in light of the fact that there will be pressure on carbon and carbon intensity of our economy, and this would provide a very solid foundation.
We're going to try not to inundate our viewers with charts on this program, but we do want to bring up a couple. Let's start with the first one. Sheldon, if you would, the pie chart. This is how, when you turn the lights on in the province of Ontario, that electricity gets generated. And as you can see from the right-hand part of that circle, the lion's share is nuclear. More than 50% of the electricity generated in this province is created by nuclear power plants. Hydroelectric is the next biggest chunk. Gas gets the next biggest chunk. And then wind. You can see that's a big part now. There was certainly nothing there a decade ago, but now wind gets us more than 2,700 megawatts of power. Solar, just a little sliver of orange, and biofuel, even less. So nuclear clearly is something we are hugely dependent on. And I guess one of the things I want to get into some discussion on here is, if we're not going to be as dependent on nuclear generated electricity going forward, what else can we do? Are there alternatives? Mark, if it's not nukes, what?
Yeah, I think the number one argument in favor of nuclear power, as I hear it on the commercials, is that they provide 50 to 60% of Ontario's power. Therefore, it's really hard to imagine how we can replace that. But I think it's important to keep in mind that, Ontario might be the only jurisdiction really in North America that relies so heavily on nuclear power. No one else does that. It's been very expensive. We haven't had the opportunities to look at the alternatives here in Ontario because the way they make these decisions are so political. The stakeholders in place.
Understood. But we are where we are. So if it's not going to be nuclear, what?
Well, I think the nuclear power idea is an old model, very much so, where you build over 30, 40 years, you sell the power to the customers, you break up the cost, et cetera. That's all changing everywhere. It's district power, deregulated, decentralized power. Natural gas obviously plays a huge role in that and is at its 50-year lows. And natural gas obviously travels in pipes. It doesn't come on trucks. You can burn it in your house. You can cook your craft dinner and not get sick. It doesn't have ashes. It's a very clean form of energy, but it also is very efficient. You can use it where you want. You can use it when you want, and you don't have to pay for it like a nuclear power plant. You can't turn a nuclear power plant on and off. So it allows for that flexibility and that efficiency. And then, of course, I think technology is going to be the Achilles heel for nuclear power in Ontario. And Ontario really needs to understand that, people are finding ways to conserve more than ever now. We hear about the eco-bees and things. And people, if they take 20% of the revenue for Ontario Hydro or OPG, if it disappears because people are conserving much more efficiently through technology, et cetera, that's a huge loss of money that I don't think the nuclear industry
So let me just understand. We're going to get everybody else in on this, trust me.
Yeah.
But I do want one follow-up.
And I'm sure we'll hear about Quebec and everything else.
One follow-up here. We generate, what is it? It's more than 9,000 megawatts by nuclear right now. Are you saying that we could replace that 9,000 megawatts of nuclear power with gas plants?
gas plants, cogeneration, solar, wind, importing from Quebec, easy. I mean, it'll take 5 to 10 years, and I think we're going to have to do it anyways, because I don't believe in the nuclear plans at all. But I think we'll have to do it. It's just a matter of when we do it and how much of an opportunity cost we're going to pay by not moving quickly.
Okay. Angela, if not nuclear, what?
Well, we are so fortunate to live next door to one of the great water power superpowers, and they have a massive and growing surplus of water power, renewable energy, very reliable electricity. We could be importing their water power enough to replace both Darlington and nuclear in very short order, or Darlington and Pickering, in very short order. We would require some transmission upgrades to import enough to replace both those nuclear stations, but we have the time, and we would save literally, I'm not exaggerating, tens of billions of dollars by importing water power from Quebec rather than rebuilding Darlington and extending Pickering.
Let me just understand this. So Quebec would generate the electricity we need to keep the lights on here. We presumably, or Hydro One, I guess, would have to build the transmission wires to get that
We already
to the
have
province.
the transmission line between the provinces. We would have to upgrade the Hydro One lines to be able to import that much. We could replace Pickering immediately with no upgrades, but if we wanted to also replace the Darlington rebuild, which would essentially say, I mean, we've done the figures and we're saying water power imports from Quebec rather than Darlington rebuild at 7 to 8 cents a kilowatt hour would save Ontario taxpayers over the course of a 20-year contract $14 billion, minus the $2 billion for the transmission upgrades, and we're still way ahead, and that's not even including cost overruns. So yes, it's an incredible opportunity. Why would we rebuild Darlington at huge public expense? We're talking OPG's come out and said 16.8 cents before cost overruns, when we can import water power from Quebec probably closer to 6 cents a kilowatt hour. They're selling most of their low-cost water power on the spot market at 3 cents. We'll give them a better deal. Long-term contract, likely around 6 cents. Save billions of dollars for Ontario tax and ratepayers, lower electricity rates around the province, and support manufacturing jobs around the province.
Let's get some feedback here. We have a hydroelectric alternative. We have a gas alternative to nukes. Steve, your view.
No, we don't have a hydroelectric. Has anybody run this plan by Hydro-Quebec? Quebec, I don't know how they're going to take English
very
Canada
interested.
managing their natural resources. They've got a lucrative export market in New England.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
They're selling two-thirds of their
they've-
electricity on the spot market at 3 cents a kilowatt hour.
During
They're
the winter
expecting that
months,
to
during the winter months they
increase.
are, and in the winter months they heat with electricity, which is 2 grams of carbon per kilowatt hour. You want them to switch to natural gas, which is 200 grams per kilowatt hour. That's 100 times dirtier.
Premier Couillard has said
That's-
publicly they want to make a long-term deal with Quebec, with Ontario.
They might want to make a long-term deal where they're swapping power during peak and during
No,
peak
no,
times, not to replace a
They
plant the size of
want
Darlington.
long-term contracts. They only have short-term contracts. They want long-term contracts.
This will not happen, and this is not a viable option. You say that it is, and it is not.
I need to understand better why it's not a viable option.
Because Quebec needs that power, and they need it for their export markets. They might be experiencing some spot market fluctuations, but they have long-term business in New England, and that's why they built La Grande. That's why they submerged a
They have
area of the
no
boreal forest
long-term,
the size of Belgium in the 1970s, and this is not an option for
They
Ontario.
have
And they're
zero
not going to sell it to
long-term
us for
contracts with New
6
England.
cents
I need
per kilowatt.
one of you at a
Thank
time,
you.
please. Do they have the capability right now
No.
of having, saying, 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 extra megawatts of
No.
power to replace Darlington?
No, they do not.
According to the Quebec Energy Commission, they do.
No, they do not.
Well, okay.
And they have no long-term contracts.
Who's going to
with-
break the tie here? Because you say they can't do it, you say they can do it. Okay, Jatine, help us.
No, I think fairly authoritative and clear studies have been done both by the IESO,
Independent Electricity System
operator, and others, which in essence conclude that this is not an option that you're talking
That's
about.
not
These
true.
long-firm contracts, and it would come in at a cost about 3 times higher than the Darlington cost.
Absolutely untrue.
So they did a transmission upgrade study which would cost about $3 billion.
$2 billion.
I'm quoting numbers that are publicly available. So you go to the IESO website and it's there on the document, $3.3 billion.
Do you dispute the IESO
Yes.
is a neutral player in this?
They've claimed that to upgrade the transmission lines enough to be able to Replace all the electricity at Darlington and Pickering would cost $2 billion.
And I just beg to differ. I'm not convinced by that argument.
This is
that's all.
exactly, though, why you need public utility regulation and hearings, to bring these arguments to the table and to put it under, as evidence, and have independent decision makers look at these costs and make the decisions. And that's exactly what Ontario hasn't done for 20 years now. And the nuclear industry has now brought the biggest plan forward ever and is doing it without public scrutiny. It's a political
That's not
decision
true.
that's not being subject to public oversight.
There has
I
been a-
know, Lake Ontario Waterkeeper would be involved in the hearing, and we'd go in there and cross-examine and do evidence. Those hearings aren't there anymore.
And you're an intervener at the CNSC hearings, and you
CNSC is-
Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission.
But hold on, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission
But
is not
this-
under
this
oath.
has
It's a
gotten-
cheerleader for the industry. There's no evidence. You get 10 minutes, and the only time it's ever ruled against the industry, the chair was fired the next day. So don't put that forward as a place where
Chair was fired the next
Linda
day.
Keane.
No, she was not fired.
Yes, she was.
She was
So you don't-
demoted and she was incompetent. That's not the
incompetent
that's
because
not
she
the-
ruled against
that's
the
not
industry.
issue.
That's why you
There have
need
been a lot of
public
results.
utility
That was the whole-
regulation,
that
and
was the whole,
Ontario needs to do it here, and
There's-
it needs to do it with administrative law, and not the political
There has
CNSC.
been a ton of public consultation on this.
It's
You
not
can't just
consultation.
endlessly filibuster these
We
things.
need evidence, not consultation.
You get evidence.
No,
when,
we get your commercials. That's it, with no
No,
opportunity.
they don't play
and
commercials
scrutiny.
in these things. They present evidence in these
Listen,
hearings.
I go to the
It
Blue
just
Jay
goes-
games. There's a lot of commercials.
It just goes the way that you don't like. That's what your objection to.
No,
this.
I'm
stand
just
by,
saying
gentlemen.
you need hearings.
Can I get Jatine
Not-
in on this?
You get hearings.
Stand
No,
by.
we don't. Haven't
Jatine,
had one in 20
stand by.
years.
Jatine, please.
I think you have to take an integrated view of how the system operates and begin to understand constraints that exist, constraints that could be removed over time if that's the path you want to go down. And so on this question of imports from Quebec, in a one technical sense, you probably could do it over the long term. This is beyond the 10-year time frame, which is where Quebec would actually have to build new generation.
No.
And their estimates of new generation are cost higher than the 88 cents a kilowatt hour that we're talking about for Darlington. That rolled in together with the upgrades to the transmission system. We've done some studies and thinking on this matter. We come to the conclusion it'll be much higher than the kind of assertions being made about 3-cent power and 6-cent power. Those are just not sustainable or cannot be defended in terms of what needs to be done. But you take the long view then in terms of where Ontario should be, ought to be, and I want to get to the gas question here as well and hope to answer that. Here we are, both at the national level as well at the provincial level, committing to aspirational goals for reducing carbon in our economy. And the buildings where we use natural gas is a big challenge to try and move down a path where we'll use less carbon. The auto sector, the electric vehicle is one. And as we move down that path, the electricity sector, if it is decarbonized, if it is an Ontario's electricity sector because of nuclear and hydro and combination of wind and solar, is a low carbon footprint system, the last thing you ever want to do is really try and crank up the natural gas part of the supply mix to
that puts more
undo,
carbon in.
to undo what you're trying to do with respect to the rest of the economy. So if you take an integrated view of where is it that we need to be 30 or 50 years from now with respect to major climate change challenge around carbon and decarbonization, nuclear makes, and we have to take the view that it is part of the system, it's one part of the system, it provides a solid foundation.
I got two
but
follow-ups
it's
here.
not
Two follow-ups.
all
Number
by
one,
itself.
why does an environmentalist want to put more carbon in the atmosphere by building more gas plants?
It's a great question. And I'm the Lake Ontario waterkeeper, and I'm fighting for swimmable, drinkable, fishable Lake Ontario and all the Great Lakes. You have to keep in mind, though, that you can't just make an argument here in Canada. We have to reduce carbon, of course, and we're doing everything we can, but you don't replace it with something worse, which is nuclear power. Nuclear power is the most dirty and toxic waste on our freshwater paradise, the Great Lakes, that exists. We have all the 18 reactors have huge swimming pools full of toxic waste. The nuclear power plants emit all kinds of other chemicals and air chemicals. They kill fish 24 hours a day because they're open cycle cooling. The biggest pollution cleanup right now going on in Canada is the $1.4 billion in Port Hope that the federal government is paying to clean up the radioactive waste that was left over from building the fuel for the CANDU reactors. It's a hard argument to make, I know, but we don't want to jump from one form of detrimental environmental way to generate electricity to a worse one, which would be nuclear power.
So is less offensive than nuclear.
Much less offensive. And I find it offensive that nuclear power would put itself forward as an alternative to gas without recognizing the incredible damage and the incredible threats to the Great Lakes that it offers.
Could you speak to the pollution discrepancy here?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got half a kilogram of CO2 for every kilowatt hour that a gas plant produces versus 0 kilograms of CO2 per kilowatt hour that a nuclear plant produces. So if a nuclear plant, doesn't matter what it produces, no carbon comes with it.
What about waste?
Waste is such a minuscule problem. If people would compare the actual physical volume of this stuff with what we are happy to dump into the great sewer that we call the atmosphere each and every day, we dump several Rogers centers of it every hour into the air from gas plants which are producing not even a large percentage of our power right now. The difference between the waste product of nuclear power and that of gas, it's literally thousands of times. So, and not only that, the nuclear waste is the only that's the only industry that prices and has costed out and is paying for its externalities. The other, we don't know what's so funny? We don't know what a ton of carbon costs. We don't know
Steve, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, the only place right now where they're cleaning the waste up is Port Hope. It's $1.4 billion. Your industry isn't paying for it. That's paid by Canadian taxpayers, and we don't even know if it's enough yet. I mean, that's on the Great Lakes, a town of 18,000 people, where the industry doesn't even say it's a problem. They're saying we're spending $1.4 billion right now, and the industry won't even admit there's a problem in Port Hope. So I don't expect you to admit that there's a problem with nuclear waste.
Okay,
You're never going to do that.
What radioactive problem has happened in the Great Lakes that has caused problems in the Great Lakes? There is none. You're
burying medium-level waste in Lake Huron this summer caused the largest public response against your industry.
Public response is not a health problem. Public response is people responding to urban legends put up by organizations like yours.
Oh, right. The public is much smarter than your industry, and that's why your industry won't subject yourself to public scrutiny.
Friends, stand by.
Because you can't defend those
stand by, friends.
commercials. And I don't know where you
stand
talk
by.
about
I gotta
my
go to
organization.
Angela. Okay, stand by, Angela. You make a case for the generation of power in Quebec transmitted by wires to the province of Ontario as a reason why we don't need to do the Darlington rebuild because we can get that power there. If that argument is so compelling, and Liberals who are pretty green on this stuff have been in power for 13 years, why have neither of the two Liberal premiers decided to move on this?
Well, I think you should ask the Premier that. I would like to know why as well. But I can only guess that it has to do with defending the nuclear lobby, the status quo. It's easier to follow that route and create jobs through the nuclear industry. What we do know is it will benefit the nuclear industry, jobs, money, industry within the nuclear industry, but it won't benefit the taxpayers or the ratepayers. Could I address the CO2 emissions issue?
Sure.
So when you say nuclear power, I say natural gas because the nuclear stations depend on natural gas backup. Darlington is offline 1 in 6 hours, requiring gas backup. 17% of the time.
Statistic. 20% of the electricity, and they're off, and they're out every 6 hours.
The history
That's
of
pretty amazing
the last
statistic.
26 years
they run for
of Darlington.
Of days at
Could
a
I
time.
repeat?
Go ahead.
Pickering is even less efficient. 30% of the time it requires natural gas backup. Those are emissions. We don't support increasing the usage of natural gas as Mark is proposing. We need to phase out natural gas and water power from Quebec. And you know what? Also, conservation is a huge opportunity for us to reduce our demand, reduce emissions, and reduce costs. The independent electricity system operator claims we could reduce our demand by an additional 31% just by investing in cost-effective energy conservation measures. There's a whole opportunity there. Water power from Quebec, conservation, reduce our demand, shut down Pickering when its license expires in 2018, and likewise with Darlington.
I do want to get a better understanding, though, of why, despite the fact Liberals have been in power for 13 years, and in Quebec, the Liberals have been in power for a good chunk of that time period as well, and the Liberal Party in Quebec and the Liberal Party in Ontario seem to be getting along pretty well these days. Premier Wynne and Premier Couillard seem to be getting along quite well, and yet neither province has seen fit to make this deal. Why is that?
It's a good point. The political alignment is there, and
Yes.
the sympathies are there. But reality kicks in. Reality kicks in meaning that the power in Quebec is not there on the scale that you're talking about for Darlington. That's one. Even if it were there, and even if you ignore the arguments for, transmission system costs and upgrades and what have you, if you are in Quebec and you have this generation, why would you want to sell it into Ontario if you could make more money selling into the American market?
They're selling it at 3 cents a kilowatt hour on the spot market. 2/3 of their electricity exports are 3 cents a kilowatt hour. They want long-term contracts. Quebec.
So they sell it to us for more.
Of course. They only have 4 long-term contracts. They've only ever made 4 long-term contracts, 2 with Vermont and 2 with the city of Cornwall, and the last one with Vermont was at 6 cents.
Can I try one more argument here? Is there an argument that, at various times Quebec muses about leaving this country, and is there an argument that at Queen's Park that says we don't want to leave we don't want to be dependent on another province, which today is happily part of Canada, but maybe at some point won't be?
I don't think we need to worry about that. We get our natural gas, we got our coal from the US, from Western Canada, we got our uranium from Western Canada. There's no reason why we couldn't have a long-term supply contract in their financial interest. Even if they were to leave Canada, they would still recognize their economic interests.
Okay, let's do one last thing here, and that is conservation. Can conservation get us where we need to go so that we don't need to spend $12.8 billion refurbishing Darlington? Steve.
No, it absolutely cannot. Conservation, we have to put electricity in its proper place in how we use energy. Most of the energy that we use is transportation energy. When you look out the window at Eglinton at 9 o'clock in the morning, that's the real energy peak in Ontario. That's something in the order of 30,000 megawatts of energy being burned in cars across the province. Heat, as Dr. Nathwani is mentioning, that puts another 30 million tons of CO2 into our air, and that's just from natural gas, the allegedly clean natural gas. If we conserve, we've been hyper-scrutinizing conservation of electricity, but we've been ignoring the fuel switching that is occurring between electricity. You were, Mark, mentioning that energy is very cheap. Energy is very cheap if you're talking about natural gas and petroleum. Electricity has been made deliberately expensive, so people cannot afford it. They are now fuel shifting to dirtier, cheaper fuels like natural gas and petroleum. I think that's a form of conservation that we don't want to engage in. We will never meet our emission reduction targets. We have to decarbonize electricity and fuel shift to electricity. You don't do that by making electricity too expensive.
Jatine, can we get where we need to get to by conserving more?
How can we not conserve more? It makes eminent sense, but you also have to be a little realistic about the numbers and the capability of what that could achieve. So the simple answer to the question, if you say conservation by itself, no, but conservation as part of a coherent strategy that actually puts relative emphasis on conservation as a way of reducing the pressure on additional consumption of energy in different forms, it makes eminent sense.
Could you find 5,000 megawatts of power by just conserving better?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear we can. I think technology is really the key to that, and that's the biggest difference in the last 30 years. And that's why I think the electricity industry, which really relies on growth, building these nuke plants relies on a solid customer base that's going to buy this power every year for the next 30, 40 years. I think it's really jeopardized by technology. Conservation's coming on strong. It's coming on in a way where the efficiencies, when you go home, for example, you're sitting here right now, you can have software that'll tell you if you've left any lights on, it can turn them off for you. It can turn down your heat when you're not there. It can turn it up. We're seeing this technology. Google has it. The Eco-Bee, I think it's called, just came out today from the Nest. And this is going to save a lot of energy.
How much?
Well, they're talking on the EcoNest says it'll save 20 to 30% of the power you're currently using just through technology and efficiency. Well, if you took 20 to 30% of Ontario's electricity use, just took it off the top, I think Ontario would be in huge economic trouble, given that they're going to spend all this money on these new nuke plants. So I think I'd like to see an industry where it encourages conservation because it protects the ratepayer and the taxpayer, and not have a nuclear industry where conservation really is antithetical to building up the energy industry.
Well, I was going to say that. I mean, in some respects, if you generate electricity, it's not in your interest to encourage conservation. Isn't that? I mean, is that right?
That's true. We're dumping it on the market. We have so much surplus electricity because, we've reduced demand in this province by 13% in the last decade.
By fuel shifting. We fuel shifted to dirtier
And
fuels.
through
We're using the same amount of energy.
through conservation and efficiency measures. And the IESO, I'll defer to the Independent Electricity System Operator claims. They just came out this year with a report saying that we could reduce another 31%. That's the cheapest way by reducing supply. They claim 3 to 5 cents. So 31% of the provincial supply. I mean, we could close Pickering immediately or in 2018
I do wonder,
and
though,
replace
Angela,
that with conservation.
I wonder how you get there. I mean, if you're Ford in Oakville and you're making cars, you can't turn the electricity off half the day, right? You're making cars all the time.
No, but they make it profitable for you to invest in conservation measures so that your company is running much more efficiently. So your electricity rates go way down, and you reduce your demand. And then we reduce peaking usage as well, which is the most expensive form of electricity. So there's huge opportunities for conservation. We should not be thinking of new supply or rebuilding Darlington or extending Pickering until we invest in all our cost-effective conservation opportunities.
We have 5 minutes to go here, and I want to put one last thing on the table, and that is, I think we have kind of demonstrated over the past 35 minutes or so how complicated this issue is and how difficult it is if you're a decision maker whose responsibility it is to make the call that will affect the province of Ontario for the next half century. This is a toughie. So there's no question that this kind of discussion has been happening around the cabinet table at the Ministry of Energy and hearings and so on and so forth. I want to know, if you're the Premier, if you're the Minister of Energy, if you are the decider on this, how do you decide with all of this competing information? Start us off.
Well, uncertainty is always part of thinking about future and how you can actually try and get to a future that you envision that you desire. And the basic elements are fairly straightforward with respect to the power system, how we plan for our energy supply. And you need to understand that we require some baseload generation, and then there are a whole host of other options that you can bring into play, integrated as part of regional trade networks and so on. So I think I agree very much that conservation is part of the solution. But when you frame it as in lieu of, you do conservation and therefore you don't have to do nuclear, kind of doesn't make sense. If you are consuming 100 units of energy, power that you need, and 90 would be better because you've now conserved, that doesn't mean you don't need the 90. And the 90 would have to be supplied by some combination of resources, whether it's hydro, nuclear, and wind and solar and so on. So there's great promise emerging both technologically in terms of smart grids and so on, with respect to the integration of wind and solar into the system, role of conservation in our lives.
Make sure everybody gets in here, Jatin. So,
and
Steve,
it's doable.
If you're the government, what's the key piece of information you need to know to help you make the right decision?
How much does it cost, and how much carbon comes per unit of energy? It's very, very simple. And if you look at the history, and if you look at reality and our current situation, we've got a low cost, we've hooked most of our supply to a low cost provider that produces no carbon. Other jurisdictions have not done this. Jurisdictions like Germany, they've got expensive, dirty power. I think that's what you look at. You look at the prime metrics, cost versus grams of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour of the energy that you're using, and you go with that.
Mark, what do you do?
I think Ontario needs to depoliticize the decision making. It needs to go back to making the decision, independent decision maker based on facts and evidence. Steve keeps talking about nuclear power being clean. I mean, that, for me, I just love to get that into a hearing and talk about that and have them prove that one. Because, I think when it's commercials and it's politics, people get really confused. And that's why we need to go back to the old public utility decision-making process, put this in front of an independent decision maker, have the facts and evidence, and I think we'll come up with a really great plan. And I think that would all parties could agree to.
That'll take 10
move
years,
forward.
though. We kind of have to make a decision quickly on this, don't we?
Well, Dewey, it's been luckily, the decision in 1992 we didn't make, because it would have been the wrong one, and we put that off for 25 years. Now we're going to make another decision for the next 25 years, and this time that we're doing it without that public scrutiny. I think that's a big, big mistake.
Angela.
I agree with Steve on this one. Cost and emissions. And in both of those cases, conservation water power imports from Quebec come in at a fraction of the cost of what OPG is requesting, which is 16.8 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's pretty clear what's in the best interest of Ontario consumers.
So we have found the consensus between you two. You don't agree on solution, but you agree on what the criteria
I
are.
can agree on carbon
And they agree on carbon.
and cost.
Well, right, and nuclear is not as low carbon option as water power and conservation, nor is it a lower cost
It also doesn't require
option.
submerging a lake, submerging a tract of boreal forest the size
It's
of
already
Belgium.
submerged. The dams are already there. They have
That's right.
access
I'm talking about
electricity.
what
Let's
you're going
take
to need in order
advantage
to
of
actually
it.
provide this power.
At a
You
question,
would
at
need.
a fraction of the cost of rebuilding
I think
nuclear.
we're out of time, but I think we've given an indication of how difficult this decision will be to whoever has to make it, whenever they have to make it. And I want to thank all of you for coming in today and sharing the different opinions and options that the Government of Ontario currently has in front of us. Jatine Nathwani from the University of Waterloo, Angela Bischoff from the Ontario Clean Air Alliance, Mark Matson, Lake Ontario Waterkeeper, and Steve Applin, the HDP Group in Ottawa. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming
Thank
into
you.
TVO tonight.
Thank you.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.